All right, here with Brent Hubbs, Austin Price. Guys, I guess let's start with this. The Ivy League kind of throwing out the first dart today, announcing that they're not going to do anything this fall. Brent, I'll start with you. Any ramifications from that?
No, I think the bigger story of the night is the fact that North Carolina and Ohio State have suspended their summer activities, their voluntary workouts, coming off the results of COVID testing that has taken place coming out of July 4th. The holiday, I think that's got bigger ramifications for the Power Five than the Ivy League. I know a lot of people think the Ivy League is the one who started all this by closing down their conference basketball tournament, but that's not really the case. I mean, I think everybody was going to go that way. I think if you're a Power Five school and a fan of Power Five football, I think you're much more concerned tonight about the news coming out of Columbus, Ohio, and out of Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Oh, I totally agree, Brent. I mean, when you look at, the way the SEC is going to react, the SEC is not going to react to Harvard and Yale and Dartmouth and all those teams. They're going to react to teams that are similar. And Ohio State is similar. North Carolina is similar. That's a Big Ten and an ACC school. When does an SEC school pull the trigger? I don't think any of them are willing to do so. But maybe they are. Maybe there'll be someone take a flyer out there and shut it down for a couple of weeks. But I think most everybody wants the competitive disadvantage.
Yeah, Mark, here's the thing that's a bit surprising to me. When all this came about, everybody said, hey, there's going to be some positives. And so when there's a positive test, you're going to quarantine someone, for a couple of weeks. Or now we're talking about, retesting guys more frequently because there's false positives out there. I'm a little surprised at the number of schools that have shut down workouts, just completely shut it down and not quarantine guys. Okay. I'm surprised at that more than I am anything.
Is there a date that you guys are hearing? I mean, I know we everywhere you go, everywhere I go, everybody says, hey,
is there going to be football?
Yeah. I mean, when's a date? August 1st?
That's a great question. I don't think anybody knows that moving target. I can tell you this. I think the SEC, their belief and their thought process is we're going to try to take this thing out as long as we can take it out. And what they mean by that is if that means you got to cancel week one, you got to cancel week one. If that means you're playing conference only, you play conference only. The Power Five schools are not interested in playing spring football. They want to play in the fall. So I think in theory, yes, you got to make a decision by the end of this month. But I don't know that with some conferences that's going to be a drop dead decision, or if that's going to be a decision where they say, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to slide it back 3 weeks or slide it back 2 weeks and alter the schedule that way. I could certainly see the SEC doing that more than having a say July 31st, we've got to make a decision. We're playing in the fall or we're not playing in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can kick the can down the road because at the end of the day, if you decide August 29th that, hey, we're not going to be able to play this fall, we're all going to have to move it to the spring, everybody's still got 4 or 5 months to get ready, So, I mean, like you kick this can as far down the road as you can kick it until you can kick it no more. And then if things are still bad or perceived to be bad, then, you have to make a decision and adjust. But, I mean, I do think that the decisions by the high schools in these states, similar states that we're talking about here, North Carolina looks like they may not play high school football this fall based off of the governor's recommendations over there. Tennessee, they're waiting on Governor Bill Lee to decide something, but I do think that Tennessee's going to play high school football this fall. Alabama, Georgia, and Arkansas, they're pushing on ahead. They're going to play high school football on time as of right now. So, I think a lot of it just depends on where you are and what's going on around you.
All right, Jay Swain joins us. Jason, glad you could join us for this. Obviously, we're going back and forth between college and high school. Austin's kind of taking us on the high school level. I was going to ask the question kind of which is first, the chicken or the egg, high school or college. TSSAA is put it back on the governor. What's he going to do? Is he going to put high school with college and NFL on the no contact rule? Your thoughts about what happened on Wednesday?
I just think. I mean, I think it's easier to play on with college than it is in high school.
Really?
I mean, that's what I think. I think it'd be really hard for the guys to be able to execute playing a season at the high school level, just because you don't have the resources. But I'm not really plugged in high school wise like you guys are, so I haven't honestly paid much attention to what's been going on, except for what they said today, which was they were postponing it. But I, just kind of looking at it from an athlete side, I would think it'd be easier to execute at the college level.
Jason, from a high school standpoint, and we've all talked about this independently, you have on your show, Brent and Austin have, high school kids are concerned right now because they're used to the signing period, the early signing period. If that high school season gets adjusted, how big of a concern is that for a kid that's looking at going to a UNC Charlotte, maybe not a Tennessee or a Florida or an Alabama?
Hurts them big time, because this summer was supposed to be the time when they went to the Tennessees and proved that they can play at the big level, like a Javonte Spraggins. What happens to him if he's not able to go in and perform in a summer camp? And so it stinks for those guys. And then to have a season that's either pushed back or not able to be played, it really stinks for those fringe guys. I mean, no one is questioning, Terrence Lewis or Dylan Brooks or those guys, but the fringe guys, this really affects them the most.
Yeah,
hey, Brent,
I agree with this.
Austin, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say I agree with this notion. I think it helps Tennessee. I think Tennessee did a nice job of evaluating talent. So, what happens with two guys in North Carolina like Colby Smith and Jalen Wright? Brent, two guys that likely, had there been camps, they blow up more and more offers. You talk about the 60-meter indoor champion for speed at the high school level, and Jalen Wright. You got Colby Smith, who's 6'7", 6'8", 310 pounds. Two guys that likely would have seen their stock rise even more had there been camps. They continue to fly under the radar, but they also kind of need a strong senior year to just validate things from a tape standpoint.
Well, yeah, but I think the one thing going for those guys is that they're already considered a Power 5 player. And so
Sure.
that they're at that level. And so I think they're going to be, they would be okay. Yes, they would have had more offers, more opportunities. I don't disagree with that. I think Jason's right from the standpoint, and Mark, what you were asking, guys that are at, ETSU, UTC,
Right.
Coastal Carolina, UNC Charlotte, those places, if they don't play, and if colleges, how's all this going to work with an early signing day? Are you going to have an early signing date? Here are kids worried about, is anybody going to find my tape? Now you don't know if you're going to get tape. If you do get the tape, our college is going to be watching a lot of tape, because half of those, the recruiting offices, if there's no college football, some of them might even be furloughed. So there's a lot of things that create a lot of, mental anguish, emotional concern for a kid who was looking for a big senior season, not necessarily to go to an SEC school, because they already know at that point if they're going to be an SEC player, but to try to land that offer at a group of 5 school or at a lesser school like that, because they're not working with the same resources as the Power 5 schools are working with.
Jason, let's put you back in a Tennessee uniform. You're wearing number 1 and you're playing right now. As a player, knowing what we know about this virus, that the bigger concern is if you contract it and you share it with your granddad. And that's kind of where we are in this. How concerned would you be as a player going out and trading sweat and with all your teammates?
That's a really good question, because I've been the player that thought about the team more than my body, and we've seen guys play with concussions, and the training staff they've had to take guys' helmet away to protect themselves from themselves. We've seen that before. So I think there's going to be some guys like that who believe they're invincible, who believe they'll be just fine, that, they're not going to go home anytime soon. So they'll be able to be infected, recover without putting their family in danger unless there's a bye week and they're trying to go home. That athlete. I think you'll have a different set of athletes who are smarter than maybe athletes 20, 25 years ago that understand that, I know my body better than anybody, and I'm not going to play if I don't feel right. And I think the athlete today, they're more empowered than ever. They understand they have leverage. They're smarter. They understand that football is not a game that they're going to play for a very, very long time, and their health is the most important thing. Their health is their real wealth. So that's the part that how will, coaches manage that? Because we've seen pro players say, no, I'm not playing. Nope, I'm not playing. Because they know tomorrow there's going to be a tomorrow, and they know that they have millions in the bank already. But what about these student athletes who are trying to get to that level, that are probably fearful that if they take that stance, that it's going to hurt them, that they're going to be labeled as someone that doesn't love the game or bails out on their teammates. So we haven't seen one college athlete say, no, I'm opting out, I'm not playing.
Mm-hmm.
Pressure. Yeah.
Yeah. AP, let me ask you this. When is there a point where you say our bigger concern are the older fans that come, Snapper, sorry, this year, you got to watch all the games at home. I mean, at some point in time, when do you make that decision?
I think it's something that probably needs to be made at some point in the next, 3-4 weeks. I don't think you necessarily have to run it right up to the season, but I don't think you necessarily have to make that announcement right now. I mean, you saw the Baltimore Ravens, they come out and, it's going to be less than 20,000 fans at their stadium this fall for football games, and that's a drastic fall off for what it normally is with the Ravens. They have a great fan base. So, I think it's trending more and more likely that you're not going to have a full stadium anywhere. And that's probably trending a way that you may not have some football in some areas. But, on the whole, I think that there's still a push to have football in these areas and a push to possibly have fans in the stands. But we'll see. It's still a long way to go. We don't know how this thing will play out. It was different 2 weeks ago than it is now, and it'll be different in 2 more weeks.
Brent, it's interesting. You and I have had the conversations. The Titans reached out to their season ticket holders a few days ago. I had a Tennessee season ticket holder, big booster, a big donor. I think he's got 20 tickets. And they called and said, University did, and said, would you be okay with having half of your tickets every other game? And he kind of says, I use all my tickets for all my family, but I'll do what I have to do. So it sounds like that everyone's making the preemptive strikes to get the information so that they're ready when the time comes. Is that how you're reading that?
Yeah, and I thought what the Kansas City Chiefs did today was pretty crazy. And what they basically said is we're suspending season ticket holders for a year. Mm-hmm. Okay, there aren't season ticket holders. They're not going to be season ticket holders in Kansas City this year. You're held for this season. You go back as a season ticket holder in 2021. And what we're going to do is we're going to sell those as individual game tickets. And that way you can't have a season ticket holder say, well, you picked, this season ticket holder got the better games than I got, or he got more games, or he got this, or he got that, than not. So they're doing that in an effort to try to keep unrest among their season ticket fan base. Now, they're also the defending Super Bowl champs, so they can probably get away with that. Whereas some other franchises, you probably can't pull that off. But I think, you have – I don't think in an NFL stadium you're going to have more than 20,000 fans. I think we're starting to see that trend with what the Ravens have said, what the Titans have come out and kind of indicated, what the Chiefs have kind of indicated, what we saw in Miami months ago. I just don't think you're going to see more than 20,000 fans. The hard part for the college game is you have twofold. One, they need the money off the tickets more than the NFL does. Okay, the NFL makes 3 or 4 times in TV revenue compared to what they make in ticket revenue. So they're fine with just TV. And it's also a year where they're negotiating all their TV packages. And you would think their ratings are going to be higher this year than ever before. So it's a great year for them to be in the market to renegotiate deals. Secondly, what Jason said was very important. You have athletes who are under contract but they've got a players union who can also come in and say, hey, I'm not playing. It's in my family's best interest for me not to play. We're seeing that in Major League Baseball. College kids don't really have that opportunity. So what colleges are battling is twofold. One, we need the attendance money, and we can't get a full attendance. And two, the reason you're seeing the suspension of some of these activities, the greatest fear that every college chancellor, president, AD, and head coach has is that a kid working out, hanging out on campus, gets so sick that he's on a ventilator, he's in ICU, or God forbid you have a possible death. Nobody wants that on their hands. That's what everybody's scared of right now. In the college game, it's the money versus the health and how you balance all those right now. And I think you're seeing a quick reaction from some of these schools. Hey, shut it down for fear of somebody, being critically ill, which is the opposite of what they said when they brought students back and said, hey, somebody gets it, we're going to quarantine them for 2 weeks and keep rolling right along. That's clearly not the move everybody's making right now.
Or
Jason, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you interpret it, Brent, to the point the way I saw the Ohio State North Carolina thing was preemptive strike on potential several positive tests, and let's just go ahead and quarantine. And the way I took it is Ohio State and North Carolina are basically going to go into a quarantine, and then probably 2 weeks from now come out into what other teams are going into right now as far as voluntary workouts. Did you take it that way?
Well, I think it's up for interpretation. They're not sending these guys home.
Correct.
So what are they going to do? Are they telling everybody, hey, you can't commingle with each other for 2 weeks? So if you're going to isolate those who have tested positive, then why are you canceling the rest of the players who haven't tested positive? Why are you shutting everything down if you were going to isolate those who have tested positive? Now, maybe you're saying, hey, they've interacted with everybody, so we're going to quarantine everybody for 2 weeks. But we're kidding ourselves if we don't think these guys are going to hang out with each other for the next 2 weeks, Jason. That's just not going to happen.
They're 18 to 22-year-old men. So what do you think going to happen?
I mean, look at Kansas State. Kansas State had a breakout on their program and had to shut down because a bunch of guys spent the weekend at a lake house together. Okay? Mm-hmm. At LSU, you had a large number of additional positive tests because a group of guys hung out in somebody's apartment and played poker for several hours. And so these guys aren't going to go and say, hey, I can't be around any of my teammates for 2 weeks. I just think that's unrealistic. To answer your question, Austin, I don't know the answer to that. It's a good question.
Of course, you can easily get into this being political, not political, whatever. But my thought process on some of this is look at Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson missed the race Sunday, but 5 days after testing positive, he's now had consecutive negatives. He's cleared for Sunday's race. So, I get the fear of something happening to one kid, but then I think there's a fine line there to not burn the entire thing down in fear of something that may or may not happen. I mean, I guess it's just one of those things where the people above all of us are getting paid to make those big boy decisions, and they're going to have to make them.
Well, nobody's above Jason. Jason, let me ask you this question: If we
we don't have that sign in the background like he does.
Yeah, exactly, the low T center thing. So if we did push football back to the spring like the Ivy League, if you were a player and you had NFL aspirations and you were a senior, would you play in the spring first off?
I think most of the guys have to. I mean, I don't unless you're Trey Smith or
Trevor Lawrence don't have to play in the spring.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields or someone like that. You got to play. You got to still go out there and prove yourself. There's a lot of guys that moved up or down in the draft based on their senior season or their last season in college if they were juniors. Yeah. So I think 95% of the guys have to play. Not everyone's Trevor Lawrence.
Well, the other thing too is, Mark, is and we've talked about this on our podcast at VolQuest. Let's say you move everything to the spring, and let's say if you're Trevor Lawrence, you go out there, or just anybody. We don't have to even say a name. if
This is
you're
where I was
any
about to
player
go,
that got
but you went
hurt,
there. Yeah.
you got hurt.
Yeah.
You would potentially miss 2 years of eligibility. So how does the NCAA? I mean, I would think the NCAA would have to come in and say at that point, okay, this was a rare circumstance. This kid automatically, no matter whether he's redshirted a season or not, he automatically gets a year back because of the circumstances. I mean, there's a lot of ifs and buts by moving that thing to the spring because of what you just brought up about the NFL draft. I mean, look, kids already set out bowl games. You're fooling yourself to think that a couple of them aren't going to set out a season if it gets moved to the spring. And then, you know, the potential for injury for underclassmen that have bright futures to where they could potentially miss 2 years and take money off their plate for their future, and it gets dicey.
Here's the other thing too, Mark, real quick on the NFL thing. How flexible is the NFL going to be for the college game? Are they going to push their draft date back? Are they going to push the combine back? Because if you play spring football, you're going to be in the middle of your football season when the combine takes place.
Yep.
You're going to be in the middle of your football season when it's draft time. Now, I would think the NFL would have some flexibility. The last point on this, and I'll let you move on to the next topic here, is how many guys you lose if you're playing on a team that's got championship aspirations and you lose that first game of the season, and then it looks like, hey, our season's just going to be okay. Let's look at a 90s Tennessee Florida situation. You play your rival game early to determine that's going to be who's in the seat to go have conference championship dreams.
Right.
You lose that game. How many of those guys go, I'm checking out. I'm done. I got to get ready for the draft. It's an unusual time. But again, the colleges have to have the money, Mark, because if they don't have football money, you're going to see a lot of cutting of sports around the country.
Well, and I think first off, little quick thing, you know how it works. How many of us think that there's football to be played in the SEC in the fall?
How many of us are hopeful? I'll say
no. You said no. That's fine. You said no. So Brent, you think that it plays in the spring?
No, I think the SEC is going to fight it and try. And maybe they can play in October. I don't think you're going to see a full – right now I don't feel like you're going to see a full season of college football in the SEC. Maybe it's conference only. The SEC will do everything they can and hold out as long as they can to play football this fall. Can they? I don't know.
Look at it this way. If you limit crowds, first thing that has to go is Tennessee paying a smaller school to play them. There's no way that you can pay somebody $1 million, a Furman or a UNC Charlotte or Georgia State or whoever. I mean, you've got to cut expenses. So to me, that cuts the non – go ahead, Jason.
No Georgia State.
Okay, sorry, it slipped out. But I'm saying you got to cut the non-conference first off. Do you not, Jason?
Absolutely. I mean, the only way it makes sense is that they're close. So, like Florida, 7.5 hours away. It's a conference game, but it's 7 hours away. And so, you know, I've seen folks that they work a job and they tell their boss, "Hey, I'm going home," and their boss told them, "Okay, well, if you drive, that's fine, but if you fly, that you have to quarantine because now you open yourself up to, you know, being possibly infected." So it makes sense for Tennessee to play Furman because it's less than 3 hours away. That's a bus. But
you still got to pay them. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe they can take a pay cut.
But that school's got to have that full check to make their budget. I think this: if you lose if those teams, the ETSU's, Furman's, Chattanooga's, those schools lose that non-conference payday money games. I'm not saying the schools I just mentioned, but there will be some schools at that level that become Division II, Division III non-scholarship schools because financially it'll bankrupt them. I mean, if you're getting $500,000 to play an SEC team, I promise you those schools getting $500,000, Austin, are counting on that money not to put in their coffers in their savings department. They're counting on that money to pay the bills.
Yep,
they are, and sometimes some of them are not just playing one; they sometimes play two. You know, because they need that double paycheck. Because much like the way the high school season is structured now, playing a non-conference game, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. It doesn't matter comparing to, when you're talking about the playoffs. to Chattanooga and ETSU, for what they're trying to get done postseason wise, losing to Tennessee or North Carolina or whoever has no bearing on the success of their season, but it does have a bearing on the success of their program. So those games to me are vital. And you're right. Maybe there's something that can be done where, like, instead of getting $1 million, you get $750, where the Power Five isn't totally on the hook, but the Group of Five still gets something.
Last thing, there's a lot of people watching, and Jason, I know you say you're not totally tuned into the high school, but right now the options are they start August 21st because the governor has changed the non-contact rule and put high school in with college and pros. Number two is they go with one of the proposals of September the 18th as the starting date for the shortened season. Or number three is everybody goes to the spring. Austin, which one do you think happens?
I'm going to go August 21st. In my mind, if my kid's going to Hardin Valley Elementary in the fall, then there's no difference in that and the kid going out on Friday night, because my two daughters are 7 and 5, and they could sneeze on the girl beside them or the little boy beside them in class and get it, or vice versa, just as easily as two guys out there on the football field could end up trading the blow and end up getting it out there in between the white lines. So I just feel like if my kid's going to school come August, they'll be playing football come August.
So you think the governor changed?
And I'm also a firm believer that it's either kind of all or none. I mean, when you look at school, I mean, like, either you're there or you're not. This whole, like, partial stuff, so I mean, I think there's always a trickle down effect from being up, from the ability to go to school to the ability to play sports, high school, college, up to the pros.
Brent.
I'm first of all, I'm surprised that all these people were mad at the TSSAA today, to be honest with you.
Shouldn't have been. They're doing all they can to have a full season.
Well, and look, I've been critical of them, but what does it hurt kicking the can down the road for another week or 10 days? Because if you're a high school coach, if they voted today on whatever plan they were going to use, your next 28 days, the month of July, is going to be exactly the same as it is if they come back in 10 days and say, hey, we're going to start on August 21st. So why not just hold out hope that you're going to play a regular season? What does it matter that you didn't find out the exact plan today? I'm a little bit surprised that there's this alleged outrage from coaches about the way the TSSAA has handled this, because I think they were dealt a difficult hand. They didn't see it coming from the executive order that came down from the governor. And so today, they obviously had intel from the governor's office that said, hey, let's talk about this some more. So why not? I have a kid who's going to be a sophomore this year, so I have hope that they're going to play on August the 21st. I'm with Austin. If they're in school this fall, they're going to play high school football this fall. The spring thing doesn't work for high school football for a couple of reasons. The biggest being you got facility issues. Because if you're playing high school football in the spring, you're also playing girls soccer. You're also playing boys soccer. That's going to end up being 5 nights of competition on your field. Your field will hold up fine, but there are some high schools here who do not have a practice field for soccer to work out at. So let's say you've got a boys soccer game on a Monday night. You got high school football practice when you get out of school from 4 to 6. You got soccer from 6:30 to 8:30. And the girls' soccer team who has a game the next day, they didn't get to practice. That's not going to fly. I just don't see that flying that way. I think that's why the spring thing has been really put off the table by most everybody you talk to surrounding the TSSAA.
And let's face it, luckily most of the teams around here do have turf, but there are Campbell County and Loudoun and Clinton. There are others, the smaller schools that have natural grass. And when you talk about soccer, football over those nights of the week, and you factor in the last 2 years, it is flooded in the month of February. It's been like Noah's rolling in. Those fields will never survive.
Okay, so Austin said August 21st. Brent, what did you say out of all that?
I'm hoping that. Thanks, I appreciate it, Mark. Tell me I just rambled on.
Oh no! I'm just saying. No,
I'm saying August 21st, but I think that's more hope than anything because I've got a kid who's really invested in it. So I'm holding out hope for the 21st.
You got a kid you got to go pick up too. So let's let Jason go. Jason, what is your vote?
Wow, man.
Dude, you've listened to all this. You've got to have an opinion. Come on. It's like a locker room show. You sat over there with Austin and Brent talking the whole time.
Can you imagine if I did this when I come on his show on Tuesdays? He asked me a question and I am on. Maybe I'll do that next Tuesday.
You should do. I think that would be hilarious. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. I mean, I can't see spring working out. September makes sense, but what's the difference between September and August? I mean, you're gonna find a vaccine in 3 or 4 weeks. I doubt it. So if you're gonna have all the students there in August, you might as well go ahead and play. I will say, what happens with kids who decide to virtually go to class? I mean, Knox County had their deadline yesterday where you can choose as a parent if you want your kids to go to school or if you want them to virtually learn. What if that kid plays a sport? How's that kid going to be able to be plugged in to practice and all that stuff?
Hey, by the way, Swain, the percentage of parents that say that they are choosing the virtual online option?
What is the percentage?
17%.
17%. We didn't, so. But I wonder. I mean, I wonder about those kids who do play high school ball who are learning virtually.
Okay, here's what I think is going to happen. I think we're looking at September 4th, and the reason I say that is I think there's going to be a compromise. I don't think the governor's going to go all the way. I don't think he's going to go all the way to August 29th. I don't think he's going back to July 29th. I think he's going to say, okay, I'll give you 2 extra weeks. And then I think everybody goes to a 9-game season with full playoffs. And then you're only losing 1 non-region game. You got the full playoffs, and I think everybody's tickled pink.
Sounds like Packers talked to somebody and he's got some inside information.
Yeah, he set us up to be wrong.
He totally set us up.
Oh,
he's some hero tonight. Hey, look, I told everybody what it was going to be. After he asked the question.
Swain's hemming and hawing.
Yeah, hemming and hawing. By the way, I have the answer.
If we've learned anything for 15 years of working for Mark, it's that he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. So it's likely to be August 10th.
Look, bumping
it up 2 weeks, baby.
No, all I know is that Austin dozed off about 6 times during this Zoom call, so I'm just glad we kept him awake till the end.
Well, it was during Jason's long he filibustered there at one point, and then I just kind of started staring at his logo in the background, wondering how I could have him. Wait, I do have my logo in the background. Can you see it? It's Augusta National, the Masters in the fall, baby.
Guys, thanks.
Maybe
we'll
it happens in the fall.
We'll do it again, okay?
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, guys.
See you.